Welcome back students to the next video. As we have seen in last video, questions about Indian history and some of the basic conceptual understanding. Now in this section we will be discussing world history questions and geography questions. First I will be taking world history question. First question is, the great revolutions of world like American, French and Russian had certain common elements as their defining characteristics. And you have to comment on it. Now when we are saying that what were the common elements of American, French and Russian revolution, we must think that when we are talking about modern world history, one of its basic thing is that during this time period there was a belief that each and every individual is a rational human being who knows what is good for him. He can take decisions for himself. But the authoritarian regimes, the totalitarian regimes were hampering his growth, and therefore there should be certain check and balances on the governments so that each and every individual can exercise his freedom, exercise his right to life and make his own destiny. These were the basic things which are underlying all these three revolutions, the betterment of human life. Though the approach they choose was different in case of American and French Revolution and Russian Revolution. In case of American and French Revolution, focus was more on liberty. In case of Russian Revolution, focus was more on equality and justice. You have to mention these things in your answer, and how in different revolutions different philosophers provided what kind of philosophy. If you are able to provide these things in your answer, you have done justification with the question. Now here I have mentioned all these things, that earlier society was divided, inequality was there, political despots ruled the world, and all these revolutions focused on removing all these shortcomings of the society. Therefore, it was fight against absolutism, fight against autocracy, it was fight for equality and freedom. In case of American Revolution, you have different calls made by different thinkers, like no taxation without representation. There was Bill of Rights. All these show that new ideas were taking shape and they were being realized on the ground level. There was focus on responsible government, that responsible government should be established. Separation of power should be there so that the government doesn't become authoritarian, and rights should be given to people, and those rights should be protected to constitutional means. Different thinkers like Locke, Montesquieu provided these concepts. The basic philosophy behind French Revolution was liberty, equality and fraternity. And all these were again, in case of French Revolution, were reflected in the Declaration of the Rights of Man and Citizen passed by France National Constituent Assembly in 1789. However, the Russian Revolution focused more on equality and fraternity at the ground level. And you have to mention all these things. So in this question, what was the basic philosophy of the time period? How these philosophies were reflected into different revolutions? important contribution of each revolution, and name of some thinkers. Now next question is, nationalism has often led to wars between nations, yet it remains a strong force which positively binds people together. Explain. So the question is saying that the idea of nationalism has led to wars. We have to justify these things, and then second part is, but yet it is a strong force which can positively bind people. You have to explain these two things. And if you have a basic understanding of nationalism, you will realize that nationalism in itself is a binding concept. Nationalism says that certain people who have common aspirations, they must work together, they must collaborate together for their overall collective benefits. But many times, when earlier I said that shared aspirations are necessary in nationalism, but sometimes that shared race, shared religion, these are also defining characteristics of a nation. But when you make your nation this isolationist, that my nation is going to have only one race, my nation is going to have only one religion, and you start showing that your nation is superior to others, it is going to result into conflicts. And you have to explain these two processes in this answer. So, here I have shown that different revolutions took place specifically in Europe. Because of these revolutions, nation-state systems were built. USA grew out of revolution, then France, then Germany, then Italy, and all they gave separate identities to different people. These separate identities or nation states, they thought that we must cooperate with other people and help in development of overall humanity, and that's why they took different initiatives. But with the emergence of multiple nation states, there started competition for resources, competition for power, which resulted into conflicts. As we see World War I, World War II, all these happened because of competition for resources, competition for land, competition for colonies. All these were the basic reasons for these wars. So in this question, what is nationalism and what is a nation? A nation constitutes of people, and they may be homogeneous and heterogeneous, but they must have a feeling of togetherness and belongingness among the people of a nation. Unless and until this feeling of togetherness and belongingness is not there, you cannot constitute a nation. This togetherness or belongingness can be because of shared history, culture, language, or common aspirations. It motivates. When we are saying we have a shared identity, that shared identity motivates different people to work together for their shared prosperity. But when you are creating multiple identities in the world, there can be parochial nationalism, which says that my identity is superior because my identity is based on specific characteristics which are better than others. Like Western countries, European countries and USA, they say that our defining characteristics is democracy and capitalism. Russia said that our characteristics is socialism, and therefore it resulted into Cold War situation. The colonialism, ultranationalism of late 19th and 20th century, specifically fascism and Nazism. These were the reasons for many of the localized wars in world and the world wars. The Nazism and fascism, it resulted into nationalistic competition, antagonism among nations. They said that it is a zero-sum game. If I am benefiting, it means another is going to be harmed. If he is benefiting, I am going to be harmed. So in such a situation, I am always focused on that my benefit should be given priority. And because of such things, the domination of the world was the main aim of these countries, and they adopted different military means, economic means for all these things. But at the same time, after colonialism, we again saw that the newly independent nations, they supported the freedom movement of different other countries. They identified themselves with different other countries, and it again showed that nationalism can be a binding instrument not only within the country but across the globe also. Here you must remember that the Indian philosophical idea of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is very much important, or Indian principles of Manshil. If any country is following those principles, its nationalism will never be divisive, it will be collaborative. So you have to mention all these things in this answer. Now, next question. What were the factors leading to American Civil War? What were its impact on America and world? What were the factors leading to American Civil War and what were its impact on America and world? Now, before answering this question, here I would like to mention certain things. That there is always power struggle. Power can be exercised or can be gained through economic resources, military resources, and whenever any section of society feels that it has not been represented in power and it is sufficient in number, or it is having sufficient moral authority, it is going to revolt against such kind of regime. And same thing was happening in USA during the American Civil War. Though through American Revolution, a constitutional form of government, rule of law, rights of people, all these were given, but still there was discrimination against the black people. Slavery was still prevalent, and it was a blot on the democracy of USA. But the real reason in Civil War was not the rights of the black people, but it all started because of economic reasons. Why economic reasons? That it was an internal conflict between 11 southern states of USA, which grouped as Confederate States of America, and the Union. The remaining states or the overall American Union was fighting against the Confederate States of America. And the reasons for this civil war were that in the southern states, slavery was still prevalent, but in northern states, slavery was abolished. Then the southern states were agriculture states. The plantation agriculture was dominant in southern states, and in northern states, they were industrialized states. Now these industrialized states, they wanted the cheap labor for the industry should be there, market for their product should be there, and to promote their industries, there should be taxation on import of machineries. But all these policies were against the interest of southern states. Why these were against the interest of the southern states? Because southern states wanted slavery system to continue because these slaves were used for their plantation agriculture. If these slaves become free, they will not have labor for their plantations. Also, if there is import tax on machinery, their cost of plantation is going to increase. Therefore, the main reasons for this American Civil War, that why it began, it was the economic conflicts between the northern states and southern states. However, it was because of the election of Abraham Lincoln. It was the election of Abraham Lincoln as president and his avowed support to abolition of slavery system. This resulted into a crisis situation for southern states. They were struggling to maintain their identity, to maintain their economy, and it resulted into civil war. But ultimately the Union won. The Union won and it abolished slavery after the Civil War. The main outcomes or achievements of the war were: it put an end to the institution of slavery. It became an inspiration for the whole world. This war consolidated the American Federation. This war consolidated the American Federation. Whenever you are establishing a federation or a union, initially there can be attempts by different units of the federation to move away from the federation, but it, after defeating the 11 Confederate states, consolidated the American Union or American Federation and put an end to the secessions of states for all time to come. In economic sphere, it led to growth of large-scale manufacturing and industries. These were some of the important benefits of this civil war, contribution of civil war to the world and USA. Now next question. In its impact on world, the Russian Revolution had few parallels in history. The question is saying that there had been many revolutions: French Revolution, American Revolution, Industrial Revolution, but none of them can parallel the Russian Revolution. As I have given you a brief introduction about in the introductory part of the test series, here again what the question demands is you must establish certain differentiating features of earlier revolutions and Russian Revolution. And as I had told you earlier, the earlier revolutions, the American Revolution, French Revolution, they all said that what we are providing: equality, freedom, democracy. But in reality, all these principles were not applied to each one in an equal manner. They said that we are having rule of law in which each and every individual is treated equally. Each and every individual is bound by the constitution and the constitutional form of government is established. But in reality, there existed inequalities in the society. These Western countries or democratic countries applied these new political principles only to their territories. They did not apply these principles to their colonies. Otherwise, there should not have been colonialism, there should not have been exploitation. But Russian Revolution was different in this aspect. It said that we are going to establish equality in our society, and that's why they adopted socialism. They focused on economic and social justice. They gave land to the peasant. Industries were brought under the control of workers. They said that we are going to establish equality in real terms. At the same time, they also said that all these principles we are not applying to ourselves only. We are going to apply these principles to the world. They withdrew from the First World War. They said that any kind of war is against humanity. We are not going to continue with it. We are withdrawing from it. They supported international brotherhood. Therefore, they supported the proletariat movement of all people in all countries. When Russian Revolution became successful, the revolutionaries withdrew their claims from all colonies. These things indicate that Russian Revolution's ideology, their main focus area was giving real shape to their ideas, and that's why it has been said that Russian Revolution had few parallels in history. It was because of Russian Revolution that idea of welfare state emerged, and even the European countries, the capitalist countries, they started welfare mechanism. Government supported welfare mechanism in their countries. Russian Revolution repudiated all kind of militarization, colonialism, etc. And later on also it inspired different thought processes of different world organizations, like basic need approach of International Labour Organization. It was an approach to development in which it said that many a times during development process we are thinking of establishing industries, creating infrastructure, but along with this you must focus on that basic needs of each and every individual is fulfilled. Unless and until they are not fulfilled and you are creating machineries, building infrastructures, they are of no use. With this, our world history questions have been discussed. Now we will be moving to geography questions. The first question of geography is: the spatial distribution of flood-prone areas in India reflect the climatic and physiographic diversity of India. It is saying that the flood-prone areas in India are located in different locations, and these different areas are affected by different climatic or physiographic factors. There is not a single common factor which can explain all the regions of floods in India. Now, if I look at the spatial distribution of floods in India, I can identify the coastal areas are flood prone areas, the Himalayan region is flood prone area, and these plain regions, Ganga plain, Brahmaputra plain and Indus plain, these are main flood prone areas in India. And all these are affected by different factors. This question specifically talks about natural factors. It doesn't want that you should focus much on anthropogenic factors. So when you look at these natural factors, if we look at coastal areas, in coastal areas, most of the flood is because of cyclonic circulation. And specifically in eastern coast, there are a lot of cyclones occurring in Bay of Bengal because of its closed nature, and they make a fall on eastern coast, resulting into heavy rainfall and floods. Sometimes along western coast, because of impact of western Ghats, there is heavy rainfall. Moisture level is high, relative humidity is high, and you are providing an abrupt obstruction to the rain bearing winds through western Ghats. So it results into extreme rainfall. In Himalayan states, again, it is a kind of cloudburst situation in many of the Himalayan states, or because of the natural barriers which Himalayas provide, there is heavy rainfall in mountainous region, and that is the reason for floods in these mountainous regions. Srinagar flood, Uttarakhand flood, all these are examples of this. When you are talking about plain areas have very low gradient, and when your gradient is low, there is a tendency for rivers to meander. And they bring a lot of silt and mud with them, and it obstructs their path, and as a result, when it meanders, it results into floods in different regions. The Brahmaputra flood in Assam Valley, flood caused by Son River, all are example of this. Along with this, sometimes there is flood in Indus Valley system, that is Punjab region. That is because of physiography of Punjab. The basin shape in Punjab is like saucer shaped, and therefore if there is heavy rainfall, the water gets accumulated, the drainage system is not efficient, and it results into floods. So in this question you have to mention all these things, that because of locational factors, climatic subtropical climate of India, peninsular location, mountainous region, plain region, and concentration of rainfall during monsoon period, India witness floods in different areas, but all these floods are caused by different factors. Now next question is, low pressure systems are associated with atmospheric instability, but they differ in their characteristics features because of their latitudinal location. When it is saying low pressure systems, it is talking about cyclonic circulations. And question is saying that cyclonic circulations are associated with atmospheric instability. It means atmospheric instability means the condition of heavy rainfall, the turbulent climate. Cyclonic circulations are associated with atmospheric instability, but they differ in their characteristics features because of their latitudinal location. So the question says, like cyclonic circulations create turbulent climate, but the characteristics of this turbulent climate depends upon latitude. And the question is, in simple words, question is talking or asking you to explain the difference between tropical cyclones and temperate cyclones. Tropical cyclones they occur in tropical regions from 5 degree to 20 degree or 5 degree to 30 degree latitudes. They are smaller in size. They move from east to west under the influence of trade winds. They cause heavy rainfall and they have their regional names. And generally their time of occurrence is summer. Because in summer you have high temperature of water bodies, and this high temperature and high humidity conditions support cyclonic activity. Therefore, these are some of the characteristics of tropical cyclones. But when we are talking about temperate cyclones, they occur along 30 to 60 degree. They are much bigger. They cover large areas under them. They move from west to east. In tropical cyclones, there is generally warm air. But we must remember that temperate cyclones are formed because of front formation. And when you are saying there is front formation, it means that you will be having both warm and cold air masses. And this front formation activity is extreme during winter season, and therefore they occur during winters. In tropical cyclones, it is generally simply rainfall because you have warm air. But temperate cyclones generally occur during winter. So along with rain, you will have snow, sleet, freezing rain, hailstorms. All these are the characteristics of your temperate cyclone. So the question is simply asking you to explain these things. Now, my next question is, groundwater is generally less susceptible to contamination and pollution when compared to surface water bodies, but in India about half of groundwater is contaminated. What are the possible reasons for this abnormality? So the question says, naturally groundwater is less susceptible to contamination, but in India it is reverse. What are the reasons? So first you can mention about that. Is it true that groundwater is naturally less susceptible? If you agree with it, then try to explain what are the abnormal behavior in India. When you are saying the first part, it is true that our soil horizon act as natural filter for water. When rainfall occurs and through river beds, water percolates down to water table. When it is percolating down, it goes through different soil strata. Here you have sand, silt, and all these help in filtration of water. Any of the impurities which are present in the water, they are filtered out and pure water reaches your water table. But sometimes what happens, when suppose you are having your water table, this is your water table, you have rocks and you extract water from it. In this water table also, some kind of natural contamination is always there. Natural contamination is always there from this surrounding rocks. When you are extracting large amount of water, the concentration of impurities can increase, which can result into deterioration of water quality. Or sometimes if your water table is near to the surface, the filtering mechanism which was provided by soil horizons is less. So whatever impurities you are going to have in your surface flow, they can enter into the underground water table. Along with this, sometimes there can be salt water intrusion from in coastal areas. This can also contaminate your underground water. So the pollution of underground water in India is not only because of anthropogenic factors, it is because of both natural and anthropogenic factors. What are natural factors? Natural factors are geological formation, where you are analyzing water and what kind of geological formation is there that impacts your groundwater. Fluoride containing minerals are easily soluble, and that's why you have fluoride contamination in groundwater in India. and this is specifically prevalent in Rajasthan, Nagaur, Karoli regions. Arsenic pollution also occurs because of presence of sediments which contain organic matter that generates anaerobic conditions in the aquifer and thus releasing arsenic. That certain conditions are there along sediments that anaerobic respiration takes place and that releases arsenic. Uranium concentration is also because of natural causes. If you are in your geological formations, if uranium is present, uranium is easily oxidized, and this oxidization releases uranium into the water and thus contaminates it. But however, certain anthropogenic factors like overexploitation results into higher concentration level of pollutants, and leaching of nitrates, shallow aquifer contamination by leachants, all these are also some of the other factors which results into groundwater contamination in India. And if we look at this map, we can see that blue areas are of arsenic contamination. These areas, dark grey areas, which show where saline water intrusion has taken place, and these yellow areas, they show fluoride contaminated areas. And when in such questions, you must also mention what are the different efforts which have been taken by government in this regard. So you can mention that we have Water Pollution Control Act, National Project on Aquifer Management, which tried to manage the quality of underground water aquifers, Salinity Ingress Prevention Scheme in Gujarat, and initiative to combat arsenic contamination in West Bengal. These are some of the steps which have been taken. Now next question is talking about India's energy independence. It says India must achieve the real goal, that is energy independence, or an economy which will function well with total freedom from oil, gas and coal imports. So it is saying that the real goal for India is achieving energy independence. And what does energy independence means? It means that if an economy functions well without import of coal, oil and gas, you have to examine this statement. Now, when you are examining this statement, you must have a basic understanding that India generates around 370 gigawatt of power annually. India is third largest consumer of electricity, but per capita consumption is less. Per capita consumption is less. So naturally this power generation is, or energy consumption is going to increase in India. But for this, for our energy consumption, specifically in gas and oil sector, we import 80% of our requirements. In coal, we have sufficient reserves of coal, but their quality is poor, and that's why we have to import specifically coking coal from other countries. This is the situation, how much energy we are using, how much energy resources we are importing. But then it also says that at presently we are generating our 24% of our power from renewable sources, and potential for them is around 1000 gigawatt. So the question is having these two figures in frame, that in case of power generation we require 370 gigawatt, we have potential for 1000 gigawatt. Why not realize all of this potential and become energy independent? If we are energy independent, our foreign policy will also become independent. We will not be dependent on others. Cost of energy will reduce, and each and every household, each and every individual will have a better quality of life. But again, we must remember that we are living in a globalized world. What we are living in a globalized world. In globalized world, interdependence is always there. Either we are dependent for technology, we are dependent for minerals which are to be used in renewable energy. So if ultimately we have to be dependent on someone for something, then why to focus on complete energy independence? We can say that instead of having a reliance on particular region or particular country, we are going to diversify our sources of import. We will be importing from multiple countries. At the same time, we will try to reduce our import, and we will continue to strive for increasing the share of renewable energy. So this is going to be our objective, that I do not completely believe in the idea of energy independence, but believe in the idea of energy security, and that can be achieved by increasing share of renewable, increasing use of domestic coal, exploiting all the domestic energy sources, and then when we go to the outside world, there also we will diversify our import sources, so that problem in any country or any region does not affect our economy, or they are not able to exploit our weaknesses. So this should be your answer, and then you should mention some of the schemes or initiatives which have been taken by Government of India in this regard. You can mention, in case of renewable energy, the biofuel policy, national solar mission, offshore wind policy, hybrid solar and wind policy, renewable energy bill, all these things which have been taken to increase the share of renewable energy in India's energy basket. Now, next question. In next question, it is, the world cities occupy just 3% of the earth's land, but account for 60 to 80% of energy consumption and 75% of carbon emissions. It simply is saying that our urban areas are energy intensive. So in the light of the above statement, analyze the threats faced by urban centers from climate change and suggest strategies for sustainable development and adaptation to climate change. So the question is saying, because of energy intensive lifestyle or energy intensive economic structures in urban areas, they are becoming more and more vulnerable to climate change, and what strategies must be adapted to tackle climate change. So in this question, you have to write some of the challenges which are being faced by urban centers, then what should be done. And it is in answer, you can mention some of these facts, that 54% of world population lives in urban cities, but they are under risk from different causes which are arising from climate change. Like, you have a risk for increased water stress, heat island effect is increasing your temperatures in urban areas, there is increased frequency and severity of extreme climate, and it is resulting into floods, droughts. There is rising sea which can result into inundation of several coastal cities, and it will be a major economic and loss to human life. When your heat increases, when you have more moisture content The threat of vector-borne diseases increases, therefore it is going to result into health challenges. Freshwater resources can deplete. Why freshwater resources can deplete? Because if there are more extreme climatic events, the rainfall which occurs is sudden. There is less time for percolation and most of the water is lost to the oceans. There can be situations of floods. And you can mention the different cyclones which are occurring in USA are an example of this. The extremity of those cyclones is increasing and it is going to impact our urban life severely. There is going to increase in ground level ozone if temperatures rise, and that can be very dangerous things. And why all these things are happening? All these things are happening because of absence of strategic knowledge on climate change and incapacities of urban planners to comprehend these challenges and respond to these challenges. And such situation is much more prevalent in developing countries like India. What are the different things which can be done to counter such things? There must be green building initiatives. The carbon footprint of buildings should be as less as possible. There should be initiatives of rainwater harvesting to reduce water, tackle the challenge of water stress. Green spaces in urban areas must be increased. The solid waste management practices should be improved to counter the threat of vector-borne disease. And there must be increase in the abilities of urban governing institutions so that they can respond to any of the future challenges. In India, all these have been incorporated into different initiatives which have been taken by government, like Smart City and Amrut. Both focus on making Indian cities resilient. We have rooftop solar power installation so that footprint of an energy carbon footprint in India decreases. We have a policy for urban forestry which focuses on increasing green spaces in urban areas. Under Paris Agreement, India has committed its intentionally determined contributions under National Action Plan on Climate Change. We have National Mission on Sustainable Habitat, which focuses on improving our housing so that it is resilient to climate change and it contributes less to climate change. India has developed a climate smart cities assessment framework in February 2019 for smart cities, and it is a guiding framework for cities towards climate actions. So it can be said that India is taking holistic steps to counter the challenges which are being thrown up to it by climate change. And how India is going to respond in future, that will be determined by the capacities of urban planners and urban governing institutions. So it is very much important that urban reforms are done. Now, next question is, much of the water crisis in India is caused not by natural disasters, but rather because of severe mismanagement of water resource, poor governance and apathy about magnitude of water crisis. When we are talking about water crisis, it can be shortage, droughts and flood. All these are water crises, and the question is saying that these are caused not by natural disasters, that there is excessive rainfall or there is absolute shortage of rainfall. Most of time these are not caused by these things, natural factors, but anthropogenic factors dominate. And how anthropogenic factors dominate? severe mismanagement of water resource, poor governance, and apathy about the magnitude of the crisis. And all these things are related. We have apathy, it will result into poor governance. If governance is poor, it will result into poor management of resources. So the question is saying, we never realized that we are facing such a crisis, and when we didn't realize it, we didn't create policy environments for such crisis. And we are not having policy environment, you are not going to have good governing architecture in that area, and that will result into poor maintenance of resources. And all these things are reflected. We can say that in many of the states or districts, when droughts occur, they are not only because of less rainfall, but because of over exploitation of water. They are because of over exploitation of water. Village people, district people, they do not have knowledge of how much water is available in underground aquifer. If they are not having that knowledge, they are going to continuously exploit it, and one day it is going to be extinguished. The Latur drought was because of this. In Latur, we have the average rainfall was less. Average rainfall in Latur was 89 centimeter, and here they are growing sugarcane. Here they are growing sugarcane, which needs more than 100 centimeters of water. So naturally they are going to exploit underground water resources, and when during any year, if there is rainfall is less, you are not having underground water availability, you are going to face drought. Similarly, in cases of flood, it is mismanagement of the dams many a times which have caused floods. The dams have a dual objective. Dams have dual objective: irrigation, electricity generation, and flood management. For electricity generation, you must have maximum amount of water in the dam. But for flood management, you should continuously release water from the dam. And what happens? The dam authorities focus on electricity generation, and they fill their dams during the early period of monsoon, and it results into situation that if rainfall occurs during the late periods of monsoon, they suddenly release the water and it causes flood. Similarly, the pollution of water is because of mismanagement, because of absence of governing architectures. And therefore, you have to mention all these things in your answer and then suggest how these problems can be removed. So you have to mention that anthropogenic factors have altered the rainfall pattern in India. We have constructed large number of dams which have diverted water for irrigation and hydroelectric generation. Because of that, we have destroyed large river ecosystems, and which is impacting our groundwater aquifers. We are also undertaking extreme groundwater exploitation for agriculture, for drinking water and commercial purposes, and all these things have impacted water cycle in India, and this impacted water cycle is creating havoc and will create havoc in future also. If you remember, I think 2 years back there was water crisis in Shimla. Himachal Pradesh received sufficient rainfall, but the underground water availability is very less. There are some ponds in which water can be stored, or lakes in which water can be stored, and through these systems water can be supplied. But the different projects which were undertaken by Shimla authorities, few of them focused on pond management or lake management. Most of them were focusing on metering of the water pipelines and all these things. When you do not have water, what you are going to meter? So there are wrong priorities. So there should be focus on what are the right priorities for us. So for this, there must be awareness among the citizens. But this awareness only comes when there is community participation in the management of resources. Therefore, community level water conservation, community level participation in water resource management and planning is very much essential. And for this, institutional mechanisms created from the top level, the government must take steps, must finalize the policy. Now my next question is, what is one district, one product approach to development? Do you think this approach can bring development at grassroots level? And mention some of the recent initiatives by government with this approach. We have different approaches to development. And in these, top-down approach and another is bottom-up approach. Bottom-up approach, top-down approach. These are the two basic approaches to development related to planning. A top-bottom, top-down approach, all the decisions are taken at top. What is good is decided by authorities sitting at the top, and they enforce their decisions downwards. In this system, there is always a tendency that persons sitting at the bottom, they do not receive the decisions from top well. Either they are not interested in it or they are not motivated in it, and it results into failures. But in bottom-up approach, the person sitting at the bottom is involved in decision making. When he is involved, he takes ownership of the decision. He is very much interested in implementing this decision, and he tries to ensure its success. And therefore, many times it has been said that decentralized decision and bottom-up approach of development is very good. And this bottom-up approach of development has also one other advantage. What is that advantage? That it uses the local knowledge which is already available. And it vertically integrates the ground level to the top level. And this one district, one product approach has all these advantages of bottom-up approach of planning. This approach, though initiated in Japan, has been adopted in several countries, and India has also adopted it in recent. What are the benefits of one district, one product approach? That first, if you look at the concept of one district, one product, it says that we have many districts, and those districts are producing different products. They can be agriculture products or industrial products, but each district has certain natural advantages, has traditional knowledge and expertise. We must use this natural advantage and traditional knowledge to develop the district, and we must focus on that one product in that district in which it is having natural advantage. Through this, the skills of local people will be used, the skills will be upgraded, and because we are only promoting the product which is already existing in the district, it will be easily accepted. As a result, it will result into increased value addition, increased incomes and local employment, and will tackle the issue of imbalanced economic development. Along with this, when we are saying one district, one product, it is also going to be competitive. If one district is performing well, it is naturally that other district will learn from it, and they will try to show that we can do better. And when district is performing these things, district authorities are helping. Help is also provided by central government and state level through financial means, through policy means. So it is a competitive and collaborative effort to develop districts in India by using the traditional knowledge. So it is the crux of your one district, one policy scheme. And it is like that name. You have aspirational district program. In aspirational district program also they are focusing on one district and holistic planning for that district. In aspirational district program, all the components of development are being programmed and undertaken. But one district, one product focuses on economic development through cluster development in the district for a particular product. If you are developing cluster in a particular district, it is going to be cost effective for you to procure raw material. It is going to be easy for you to market your product, and your district can get a distinct identity through it. Therefore, if implemented well, one district, one product initiative or concept can be very much successful in India. Recently, government scheme of Prime Minister formalization of micro food processing enterprises has adopted one district, one product approach. In this, cluster development will be taken up at district levels, and both center and states will work together for this cluster development. Along with this, Uttar Pradesh government has started one district, one product scheme, which is focusing on skill development, skill upgradation of traditional artisans, and using those skills to market the products. So in this way, it is a new approach to development which is expected to bring good results in India. And with this, our discussion of test paper 1 ends. Here again I am saying I have focused on broader conceptual parts which must be reflected in your answer. And if you have a certain conceptual understanding, I guarantee it will be very much easy to write your answer. You will not have to memorize too many things. It will be understanding and reflection. And with this, I thank you.